In order to help some folks that are not quite up to speed on Excel as much as other folks in the class, I'm going to put up little tutorial videos on how to do some of the basic things within Excel. You can answer some questions early in this class without using Excel, but it's going to reach a point where you're going to want to be able to, and I want to make sure everybody's in it prepared for later chapters. So if we're looking at the present value, and if we have our interest rate, our time period or number of periods, if there are any cash flows, and what a future value is, we can determine the present value. Now, and what I've done is I've, in parentheses here, I've put what the function is for each of these in Excel. If you know any of the any four of these, you can solve for the fifth. And I'm going to put up a video for each of these five, but just wanted to make sure everybody's feeling comfortable using Excel in this class, because it's a key component of the class. Now, let's say somebody is promising us $100,000. So I'll go ahead and put $100,000 here in the future value. And they're going to give it to us in 10 years. So we've got 10 annual rates. And the periods, it could be a monthly, it could be daily, but for here, we're looking at 10 years. The interest rate, let's just say that if we could buy a 10-year CD right now that would pay us 5%. So that's the interest rate. And the interest rate we're going to use is the interest rate that we believe we would receive if we were to deposit money elsewhere. But we're looking at depositing money here where they're promising us $100,000 10 years down the road. And then cash flows, for the moment, I'm going to put 0. I want to solve for just the future value of $100,000 at 5% over 10 years, and then I'll incorporate the cash flows, and we'll circle back to that in a second. So now that I've got the 4 pieces of information that I need, I can use the present value function, and you can see it's PV. We've got an interest rate of 5%. That's our appropriate interest rate. 10 years. Now, even though there are no cash flows, I always like to include all 4 pieces of information here if I'm going to use the present value or the future value calculation, just so I don't accidentally put the wrong number under payment. So it's $0. And then finally, as I noted, we're going to get $100,000 10 years down the road, and our appropriate interest rate is 5%. And when I hit enter, we're going to get $61,391.33. Now, one of the things I like to do is I like to do formula text so you guys can see what's going on here in that spot. We all owe a huge debt of gratitude to a student that introduced me to formula text a few years ago. So if you were asked, what is the present value of $100,000 with a discount rate of 5%, 10 years in the future, the answer is $61,391.33. Now, what if, and now I'm just going to start changing numbers. What if somebody said, we're going to pay you $10,000 a year? We're getting an annuity that pays us $10,000 a year each year at the end of each year for the next 10 years. And our appropriate interest rate is 5%. What is the present value of that? Well, the present value of receiving $10,000 a year for the next 10 years at 5%, that present value is $77,217.35. And what if somebody says they're going to give me, $10,000 a year for the next 10 years, and then at the end of 10 years, they're going to give us $100,000. And this sounds kind of silly, but this is actually how bonds work. So a bond, if you purchase a bond, you get a steady cash flow, and then you get the face value of the bond at the end of the life of the bond. And we are going to spend some time on bonds in this class. So in that case, all we have to do is enter those numbers once we've set up the spreadsheet, and the present value of that is $138,608.67. So with respect to present value, if we've got these 4 pieces of information, we can determine the present value of these cash flows based on this rate. And then one last little piece of information. Present value and future value need to have opposite signs when you're using this. And one of the ways that I try to keep this straight is assume that we're going to have to deposit $138,608 in order to receive $10,000 a year and then $100,000 10 years out. So we deposit $138,608, and then we receive all of those cash flows over time. That's just how I keep the opposite sign in mind. And then one last little thing with respect to present value, you'll see that there is actually one more entry. Most of your problems will involve an end of period. In this case, we would get our first $10,000 a year from today. But if it were the beginning of period, if we had a problem that said, what is the present value of these cash flows, and the first cash flow starts today, we could use beginning of period. This defaults to end of period, and the majority of your questions will be end of period. But if you do see something that talks about receiving money at the beginning of a period, there is a way to change the formula here. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to put a 1 in there and just show that that number did change a little bit, and then I'll change it back to a 0. Or if you don't put anything in there, it just defaults to 0. And that is back to that 138,608. So hopefully, if you need a little boost on or a little reminder on how to do present value in Excel, you've got a nice example in front of you.